So we have what's called a Welcome Home program. And then the Welcome Home program, we provide support for 3 to 6 months, depending on the individual, to getting back into society, helping find a place to live, helping find a church, and helping find a job. Because what I don't like is when I'm going into the prison is I've seen one guy the third time back in prison. So these type of programs will help solve that a lot. And with that, I think that's probably taken up most of my 3 minutes, so I'll stop there.
Thank you. Mr. Yoder? You need to unmute.
Okay, I'm sorry. I've been working with the Valley Justice Coalition here in Harrisonburg, Rockingham County. I'm also active in the program at Gemeinschaft, which is a 90-day reentry program for people coming out of prison. And I'm a part of a group called Aging Persons in Prison, Human Rights Campaign, which is has a number of affiliates. You might be interested in becoming a part of that as well. And also for the Harrisonburg Rockingham Reentry Council. We were working on a case recently where we thought we had the best possible candidate for release, someone who had been in prison since he was 16 years old for a significantly terrible crime, but is obviously, after decades of hard work in his own rehabilitation, a completely different person. And we were working with the parole board. We had a home plan, everything. And then he was turned down again for parole in spite of what I thought was an impeccable home plan. So that's been really discouraging. And I'm reminded of that there are two levels that we need to work at. One is the nuts and bolts level, where you, with the STEP program, I think is a wonderful, wonderful sort of template to be used, that I hope congregations all over can start to pick up on this and do what you're doing. The other is how can we change the hearts and minds of people? I'm having a conversation with our state senator this week who railed against the parole board's recent releases in April. He did a number of podcasts where he criticized the board for releasing people who were terrible criminals. They had done really, really bad things. But the assumption is that these people are the same now as they were the day they entered the system. In other words, what I see as a fundamental underlying problem is the mindset that says, once a criminal, always a criminal, never safe to be around, and everyone needs to be just in prison as long as their sentence is, regardless of their behavior. So as people of faith, how can we get the message of reconciliation and rehabilitation out there, where we believe that the Bible is all about release for captives and a restoration of people regardless of their past? So I'd be glad for your feedback as we experience this together today. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Mr. Yoder. David, who's next? David?
Should be Shasha, I think, right?
Yes,
Sasha?
I think that.
Right.
Candidate
Right. Sorry, I didn't want to go unless I authorized.
You
Hi,
authorized.
everybody. Hi.
Yeah.
Thanks. Yeah. So I've been teaching anthropology at Washington Lee for about 20 years, and I've recently taken over directorship of Community-Based Learning Office, which Tammy Helwig led before and started. Hi, Tammy. And so I started in this work when I took a class through Inside Out. It's it started at Temple University. The idea is there's several different kinds of models of these around the country. This is just one type, but to teach a class with students matriculated at a university with students who are incarcerated. And the idea is to transcend boundaries and open minds through a lot of, so the idea of like a lot of icebreakers, a lot of getting people to feel comfortable talking, and then using societal issues to have them really reflect on what it means to be human, what it means to have respect, what it means to have empathy. And the course went really well. It was called Narrating Our Stories. And so we took an anthropological theory or sociological theory about identity, like race or gender. And then we read some biographical or memoir aspects of people who were struggling with those ideas and sort of trying to make it their own. And the idea there was that folks would think about the structures that constrain them and then try to figure out ways of having agency within those constraints, which I think is a really important aspect of moving through the carceral system and trying to come out the other side. And as director of community-based learning, I've been working with other faculty. Howard Twani is on the call today. Other faculty have been doing this great work with incarcerated students, and also Jeffrey Shatton. So I'd love to talk to you all about the value of education and the importance of education as creating community, creating a sense of, both basic sense of being human and empathetic, and thinking outside yourself, which is really hard in the prison system. And so I think one of the challenges we all face in work like this with the STEPS program is changing a mindset of having to survive in prison and then coming out, and what does that mean for the shift in understanding of self and others.
Thank you, Sasha. Who's next?
Sasha. Our next would be David Brook.
Well, hi, everybody. Let's see, am I?
You're on.
Okay, good. I, until the beginning of this month, ran the Virginia Capital Case Clearinghouse, which is a death penalty clinic at Washington Lee. But in the last 3 years, we have shifted our attention to representing Virginia so-called old law inmates before the Virginia Parole Board to try to win them release on parole. Virginia abolished parole, as you probably know, in 1995, but they weren't allowed to abolish it retroactively, which means that anyone who went into the system before 1995 still comes up for parole. For many years, that was a dead letter. The board almost paroled almost no one. But there's now a reform board or at least a reform board majority in office now that was put there to change that and start releasing these folks who, if you do the math, have all been in prison for at least 25 years. And some of them 35, 40, 45 years. We represented someone who's about to hit the 50-year mark this year. That population is about 1,600 inmates that have served that much time and date back to pre-1995. The group of parole eligible inmates is now growing a little bit because some juvenile offenders have been added by the legislature this year, and also about 400 people that were thought not to have gotten fair sentencing hearings. So it's now up to the low 2000s. These people have no right to counsel, and they are reviewed once a year in a process which is somewhat hasty and very under-resourced. Representation can make a huge difference, and it does not require a lawyer to advocate for someone before the parole board. A member of the board will meet with any advocate in a semi-formal 30-minute hearing, any advocate for a person coming up for parole. So there is an advocacy role for these really unrepresented and rather forgotten people. I want to really underscore what Mr. Yoder said about the retributive blindness of this system. These are people who pose no risk to anybody. They have been in prison so long. The person that committed the crime has long since ceased to exist. So these should be easy decisions, but one of the problems that keeps them in is not, I mean, there's a small group whose crimes were so high profile and so terrible that that's what causes the parole board to shy away. But there's a much larger group who don't make parole because in effect they are homeless and friendless and have nowhere to go. And the board is reluctant to let people out onto the street. And so a program like this is really so needed. I hope that Grace will look not only at supporting a particular parolee or potential parolee, but also link up with other churches, try to help make this a more widespread program. And also that you'll see it as part of your mission to advocate for legislative change and for resources. This problem of solving prisoner homelessness should not be consigned to charity. It is a problem that should be solved by Virginia, by our legislators, by the state collectively. And so there's a whole range of areas of advocacy from the individual level to the statewide level that I'm just very thrilled that Grace is going to take up. And I did want to mention that one of the new directors of our clinic for next year, Bernadette Donovan, is on this call and following with great interest the meeting that you're having today. Thanks.
Thank you, David. It must be Jessica or Dawn next.
No, we have Jessica Lee next.
Thank you so much. I'm very grateful to be a part of tonight's meeting, and I cannot tell you enough how grateful the Department of Corrections is that individuals take a vested interest in supporting returning citizens. I feel like I could kind of go on for days. I'm just going to try to keep it brief. I worked in reentry with the Virginia Department of Corrections for 15 years, and then prior to that, I worked in reentry in the state of Iowa for 10. I'd like to just give you a quick snapshot. I think most of the material was sent out in a PowerPoint and then also a video, but I'm happy to fill any gaps. We know as a state agency that without partnerships, without the faith-based community, without state agencies, that we would not be able to continue to be as successful as we are as far as helping people return home and have successful lives. As you know, our recidivism rate is at 23.4%, which is the lowest in the nation for the third year running. But it's really not about the numbers and it's not about the data. It's just about people connecting with other people to make sure they have a smooth transition back home. We can go through the reentry process. The one thing I want to emphasize is that for any man or woman that enters the Department of Corrections, reentry is really going to start at day one, even if there's a long sentence. We have a systematic approach where we do a risk and needs assessment. So we know that individuals are placed in programming at the right time and for who really needs those services. We don't want to overtreat people, but then we also want to make sure that services are rendered. That can vary from anything with substance use disorder, of course, to anger management, parenting, family unification. We definitely look at mental health and medical needs as well. And then we have specialized populations such as our sex offender population, seriously mentally ill. We even have specialized programs for veterans and different groups of individuals that have specialty areas of concern or needs. So individuals kind of transition throughout their time incarcerated, and education is available to them at different levels, as we've heard through partnerships. Vocation is important. We also know that in combination with programming and our career technology education, which is our CTE, which is vocational skills, we have a greater success. Those individuals who are able to get into those programs and successfully complete them have a lower recidivism rate than even our general releasing population. What I do hear is specific concerns regarding those individuals that are getting ready to go home that do not have home plans. Years ago, it's been over 10 years, the Virginia Department of Corrections had what we call a transitional therapeutic community program. We lost funding on that at some point, and unfortunately, are no longer able to do a smooth transition from our therapeutic communities into those TTC beds. As you may know, the Virginia Department of Corrections does partner with a number of individuals for transition housing. So we have community residential programs, and those actually are have set out money allocated to help individuals go to those CRPs. And then individuals can choose to go to alternative recovery homes or transition homes, but it could be at their own expense, which we know is a factor. And then, of course, in an ideal situation is if the home plan is a positive atmosphere, then, of course, if a man or woman can go home to a family member or a friend, then we want to support that reunification as well. Because as you can see, support is critical for our population. I'm happy to go into the number of programs we offer. In addition to our intensive reentry programs, that individuals participate right at the very end of the sentence. And so individuals at that last 24 months are typically transferred to an intensive reentry program closest to their home plan based on their security level. And there, it's a pretty intense experience. Individuals are kind of in this, what we call a cognitive community, which is cognitive as we help them to look at their thinking and help them to be more pro-social in that action. But also the community setting, we're kind of mirroring the world in the fact that they have jobs and they have responsibilities. Every morning we start our day with a morning meeting. Many of you probably do that on the job, right? And we have a word for the day and we have a thought for the day. And we have all these things that kind of let us share information and remain positive. And then at the end of the day, we do that as well. We kind of come together, we share more information, and we have a smooth transition into the night. And who runs those meetings? But people are incarcerated who are in these communities. They are in leadership positions. That being said, there are other programs that go with that in between the morning and evening meeting. And it's been very successful. We're excited about it. Right now, we have 18 of those throughout the state, two of which are identified at our therapeutic communities, and then 16 are standalone. But I will say that all offenders are going to receive a level of reentry services prior to release, just to fill that gap. I'm going to kind of wrap up that time, but I'm here to answer any questions. But I think the one thing I really want to make sure I emphasize is please know that without partnerships such as yours and without your investment into individuals, we know that our work would not be able to be done. So thank you.
Thank you very
Thank
much.
you very much. Okay, Mr. Stein, we're ready for you. Donald?
Yeah, I'm
You have to
here.
unmute.
It's not muted. Can you hear me?
Yes, yes.
Okay. Well, I'm Donald Stein. I'm a chaplain at Buckingham. Now, I've been with Grace Inside since 1990, but 8 years of that was with juvenile. And then I came to Buckingham in 1999. And I've been there except for 2.5 years since then. Mostly my work is done with religious volunteers and offering religious help and programming and trying to get the guys the religious literature and leadership that they need. But they also bring to me their problems about reentry and problems at home. And so many of them that I talk to have been in prison for so long that there's nobody left out there. And if they are still out there, they just don't care anymore. And I've got one guy I've been working with that's tried everything. He's he's got a plan that he wants to go to Alaska. He's got a plan that he wants to go back home and then move somewhere else. And none of these plans that he comes up with are really logical or doable. And even some of the people that have homes and people that care about them The courts or the DOC don't want them back in their old neighborhoods because of the continuing influences that might exist there, or the continuation of hostilities from crime victims. But above that, I don't know exactly what I'm doing on this program. Sometimes I don't think know what I'm doing anyway. But as far as being here, I just know that there is a real need for somebody to be able to take these people over in a one-on-one situation like you have planned. A lot of these people go into halfway houses, and some of these halfway houses are woefully understaffed. So many of them are either faith-based or some other community-based that are so underfunded in so many ways and understaffed. There are exceptions. Discovery House, Gemeinschaft, and all have done a really good job. And Muslim Chaplain Services has a halfway house in Richmond. So many of these people are going right back into the city situations that they came out of that got them in trouble in the first place. And out in the rural areas, Rockbridge, Amherst, there's not a lot of support for individuals who are returning to society. And I think my 3 minutes is up.
Thank you so much.
Thanks, Todd.
Okay, thank you very much to the panelists. And we are now going to cross our fingers, say our prayers, and hope that we go into breakout rooms when I push this button. If you don't get in a breakout room, you'll be still in the main room with me, and I'll try to assign you. But there's no way to practice this ahead of time, so it's really just luck, I think, if it happens. So here we go. You'll get an invitation, and you just click on that invitation to enter your breakout room, or chat room it may be called. Is anything happening? Nobody's going to a breakout room?
I just see the whole room again.
Okay, so I will do this.
Just a little bit, but that was all. They jumped. So.
Okay, I'm going to have to do this by hand, which is possible, but it's not quick. So you can talk among yourselves if you have some questions you want to ask of the panelists while we're sitting here waiting for the breakout rooms to work. That'll be fine.
Yeah, Bill, I have one for you, sir. You deal with 12 different parishes. Have you seen any attributes?
Attributes, keep going.
Oh yeah, it looks like our breakout room just came up. My question was, have you seen any attributes within the parishes that you deal with that are either strengths or weaknesses as they step up programs like this?
Yeah, it has to be local. You have to know the people that you're serving. So the best programs match a specific jail with a specific parish, so that they actually know the people. They meet them before they get ready to leave prison, and then they can move out with the things that they need to do, because every individual is totally different.
I have a question for the person from the reentry specialist, reentry services. Is that Jessica Lee?
Yes, it is.
Right person?
Yes.
I tried to say it in chat, but I'm just trying to figure out now who within the Department of Corrections can tell me where the people are who right now need money so that they can be released under the early release program. I've called counselors in prisons, a number of different prisons, just to say, do you have someone and some of them do. But there doesn't seem to be a way to tell even the other counselors in that same prison, much less the counselors in all the prisons statewide, how many people are sitting there ready to walk out the door, except they don't have the money, like $100 a week, to pay to Bridging the Gap in Virginia or some other resource. I don't know how to find those people. I want to raise money for those people. We've gotten 4 people out so far. I can't find anyone who will tell me where I can find the people who need support. I've got people telling me they will sponsor someone right now to get them out before COVID hits, to protect the inmates and to protect the staff and to protect the families of the staff. I can't find anybody who can tell me.
I believe Jessica has gone to her breakout room, but
Oh.
I'm in Jessica's breakout room, and Ruth, I will ask her when I get to that, or I will get an email to her and ask her and let you know, okay?
Thank you so much.
Mm-hmm. I think we're all going to breakout rooms slowly. I don't think everybody's leaving, so don't get worried.
I guess we're getting teleported, huh?
Yeah, yeah.
Always wanted to be teleported. Okay.
Success, finding a job, finding lodging, and finding a church where the individual fits in. And I thought that latter right on the mark. It seemed most of our conversation dealt around his first assumption or first statement that the requirement for success is the requirement and the key to know the individual, whether it be his or her skill sets, financial situation, medical situational, personal situational outlooks, all that, which got us talking about the vetting process and how and who does that and how we tie in with internal inside teams before the individual comes to us. And so I guess the number one question is how do the parishes that are looking at programs like this vet the individuals? What's the most effective way? What should we do? What shouldn't we do?
Great.
Steve, I can answer part of that. A lot of it's built into our program. we were asking the clinic at W&L to help us to select an individual for our program. And we discussed the directors of that clinic with everything that we were trying to look for. Like, for instance, a person who does not have any family or friends left out in the open, outside the prisons. And a number of other things we have talked to them about doing. We also have an application for our program, which you probably have not seen, but it's similar to the PUPS application, and it asks about all the different skills and training and health issues and everything like that the inmate might have. He fills that out when he wants to apply for our program. So we know quite a bit from there about what he's able to do, whether he's able to work in a job. We also spend several months before we bring him to Lexington writing to him and communicating with him, getting to know him. So there's a lot going on already in the STEPS program that we have in place and plan to do with any candidate that we adopt.
Thank you so much. I think we'll go to the next group. Cecile. Unmute.
You're muted, Cecile.
Now, can you hear me?
Now we hear you. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. I
Now we
think
can.
our discussion, in a way, echoes what the discussion that took place in room number 1. I think we got some good advice at the end of the discussion. Bernadette sort of paraphrased for us what Harvey had told us, and that is, be in this for the long run. That you may have a lot of disappointments along the way. He was talking about a parolee that was just sort of the perfect candidate for parole, and we asked him about the COVID situation, and he said in the meantime the man was looking forward to parole but then got COVID. So I mean, that's kind of a tragic example of what can happen, but I think the message is just to have patience. Another thing we talked about was how much opportunity, just as they did in room 1, do you actually have to get to know this person before they come into your community. And we talked about things such as, could we have any influence? Could parishioners from Grace or people that are on the committees that are of the STEPS program have an actual influence on the parole board as far as the fact that we are willing to take this person into our community and shepherd them along? And the third thing, we started this way, that there's a real advantage to our being in a rural community. We actually have an advantage here, that some of these people from urban environments, it may not be so ideal for them to go back into the same environment. So basically that's what we talked about. Nothing really, that's not a capsule form, but that's basically what we talked about.
Thank you so much. Is there a response to that immediately, or shall we just move along and come back? Let's move along. Gail Dickerson for room 3.
Yes. In Sasha's presentation to everyone, she mentioned storytelling. So that was one of the questions that we had. And one of the ideas is there a way that we could interface with inmates during this COVID time to help share stories? The other thing was, Sasha was very skeptical about some of the icebreakers that she talked about, and she gave an example of a wagon wheel situation where you have inmates sitting on the outside of the circle and students, college students, sitting on the inside, and how they move around and interact with each other. And it was a very different experience for each group of people. And some of the college students ended up saying that that experience was an experience of feeling the most free that they had ever had, which I thought was very interesting. There was also, right now in the COVID time, it's very hard to interact with some of the prisoners because they're in basically phase 1 lockdown. But there was some brainstorming about how we might work at reaching out to some of these inmates to provide tutoring services or other things to the best of our ability.
Great, thank you, Gail. Moving along to Tammy Helwig in room 4.
Thanks, Alex. We shared a little bit about what brought us together, and shared some stories about wondering how individuals that are aging, this must be difficult for them to manage with the transition, and even understanding that there may be some needs that we would not have anticipated. Things like somebody shared a story, I think it was Mr. Stein shared a story about how an individual who was released went to a restaurant to order food and just did not understand even the mechanics of how that would work. And so after sharing some of those stories, we talked about the need for training, that we wondered how we could understand best practices, communication, language, empathy. Those are the kinds of things that came to mind. And Matthew Engel, who is the director of the clinic for this year with his partner, mentioned that there are a good number of speakers that could potentially come in that are formerly incarcerated individuals. So that was one thought we had, that we might be able to invite speakers or have some training sessions as we move into this.
Thank you so much, Tammy. Room 5 is Sharon Massey.
Here. We talked to Professor Bruck, and he talked about his work with the Virginia Capital Case Clearinghouse, helping inmates. And we talked, I think our question is, how do we get legislature to reinstate parole? And we feel like that's a worthy goal there.
Okay. Thank you. So those of you who can answer these questions, hang on to them, and we'll move along just to finish getting the principal ideas from each room. Anna, room 6.
Hi, everyone. So we basically had time that went really fast, hit 2 topics. Ruth is very interested in identifying prisoners who are eligible for release. The only thing holding them back is money for lodging. And so she is going to follow up with Jessica to figure out a method, because apparently there isn't a running list. We know that 3,000 prisoners are eligible, will be selected for early release, but there isn't an easy way of identifying those who would be released if they had money for lodging. So they're going to follow up on that together, but that will clearly affect a good number. We moved to the topic of the very rich and successful and holistic reentry programs that the Virginia Department of Corrections has sponsored. And if anyone has not had a chance to look at the video and PowerPoint that Jessica provided, I definitely encourage you to look at that. It has amazing information about the success of those programs, and they run the gamut from career and technical education, which has that program has a recidivism rate of 12%, which is just amazing. They also have some of the programs that she described and other groups have discussed, and they're individualized depending on the nature of the offenses, whether if it's substance abuse or sex offender situations or whatever. So many of these programs are individualized. The very successful one is the intensive reentry program is an 18 to 24 month program that's basically offered to inmates that have a security level 2 to 5, which is a medium level security level. So that was interesting that the programs are also based on the security level of the individuals. We ran out of time just as we were discussing the impact of the COVID restrictions on these reentry programs. And one of our concerns is either delaying selection of our candidate until some of these programs, including the Greenville 5-month reentry program, is reinstituted, or talking with experts like Jessica about the possibility of offering those services on site when our candidate comes to Lexington. So perhaps Jessica can address that more fully because we ran out of time on that topic.
Hey, just before
Alex?
Jessica responds, I would like to say it's 6 o'clock. The meeting was scheduled to end at 6. We're just at least 10 minutes away from ending what is planned. So if you would like to leave now, if you must leave, please feel free to do that. I think I'll keep us going for another 10 minutes to answer some questions and have a little more discussion. So let's continue. And if you have to leave, please take our thanks for having come, and we'll hope to meet again, maybe on this very topic one day. All right, thank you. Do you want to answer that question, Jessica, just to start us off?
Absolutely. So I will say this is that every individual has different levels of risk. And so that could be a factor. We have a assessment that gives us, it's called the COMPASS Risk Needs and Assessment. So that would tell you what a person needs. And so if that person would sign a release of information, we can kind of help you to know what you really should target. For instance, if a person's substance use disorder was targeted during their incarceration and they received those services, then I would be optimistic. If not, then we just want to make sure we put them in place, frankly. I think there are some things that you can definitely put into place post-release that are going to be successful. And then some of it, we'll just have to make sure that the person has adequate services. So I guess my advice to you would be, don't feel like you have to wait until we go back to full service. But just know that we could guide you along and help you to get things in place. I will tell you that all individuals have been given reentry workbooks, which is not ideal, but they've been given workbooks prior to release. They've been given resources, and some of those resources are available on the DOC public website. There's a little packet that kind of goes over that, and then they've been given supplemental ones that are based on their release area. And then we have what's called our wellness channel that we developed during COVID. And it has videos that former offenders have made that give men and women going home not only encouragement, but wisdom. Before I pass off the mic, the one thing I guess I would ask you is, I saw a move to involve former offenders in your plan, and I would fully support that. And please know that we work with people who are incarcerated all the time, and we have gamut of lists of people who I think could support that. And so if you would want us to reach out to some of them and give their name and phone number, we can do that. Just on my team alone, for the reentry unit, we have 2 individuals who were previously incarcerated at the Virginia Department of Corrections who have since released, gotten off of supervision, and now work for us in our agency. And one of those individuals, and I'm confident I can share this here, is Mr. Wood, and he did over 20 years in prison, but he also was a mentor for our cognitive community programs while in prison. He got out, he did very well, he was off of probation, and then he works for us. I think he's worked for us almost a year maybe. So that may be a good person to bring into the room to kind of give you some firsthand support as to what his experience has been like. But I would just push that you want their voice, because they're going to be able to tell their story better than I can.
Let's take
That's really helpful. Thank you, Jessica.
Let's take a question or two from the chat line. Tammy, do you want to try to offer some of those?
Sure. One of the questions that was raised was whether Rockbridge County already has a reentry council. I think that council was mentioned earlier in our session. Is anybody aware of that?
Rockingham County was mentioned, but not Rockbridge.
I don't know of one.
Yeah, it doesn't sound like that's something that we do have. I wonder if
What is there? How, I wonder how you create such a thing.
I wonder if we can look at that as a model.
I thought it was mandated that every region have one. Ours includes Page County and the city of Harrisonburg. So you could perhaps with a neighboring county, Augusta, whatever, Augusta has one, I'm almost sure. Perhaps your area could be a part of that. Go ahead.
I would just put this in the room that DOC tries to be very involved in the reentry councils as well when that was put out by former governor. And so maybe the probation and parole district, the chief in that area or closest district would be able to assist. And I know all of that information is on our public website, or if you need me to look it up, I can do that. But it's just if you look up the local district, probation and parole, we can get that contact information and they may be able to help.
Thank you.
Before we leave, I don't know if Jessica, you could respond to this, but the parole board is really the gatekeeper here. And one thing that strikes me as being very helpful to groups like this is if the parole board would have a list of people that they see as not only eligible, they're nearly 2,000 that are eligible for parole release, but people that they, based on the compass, the assessment, whatever, and their record in prison. Here is a list of people that we are on a commended list that we would see as promising candidates if we could just get a good home plan. Otherwise, the person we were working so hard on, I think because the parole board has this archaic way of going back to the seriousness of the crime being one of the key factors as to whether they are released or not. And as long as that's the case, the person we were working on, the crime was of such a nature that even no matter how hard you try or how, he's gotten college credits, all kinds of things that he's worked on. But if he's not really realistically going to be released, he's wasting a lot of time and we're wasting a lot of time.
Thank you. Another question raised was a little bit more information on the Welcome Home program and if there are any budgeting or liability issues that have been faced with that program.
We have discussed liability issues. We haven't had any problem with that at this point. The Catholic Church actually is very well insured. As far, and what was the second part of the question?
Same, just budgeting, liability issues.
Oh, the budgeting, we spend a whole lot less money on each individual than what I saw from David. And the reason is the less money that you hand over to the person, the quicker you get them on the street and running, finding a job, getting situated, and so on. The longer you continue to support the individual, then the more he'll lay back and not light a fire to get things done. So we only spend about $500 to $600 on an individual, and David, I think, is planning to spend more than that.
What does that $500 to $600 buy you, Bill?
It gives him approximately in an Oxford house. It gives, and that's who we work with. It gives him approximately 3 weeks of his rent up front, and it gives him a card from a Target or Walmart or somewhere where he can get, if he needs it, clothes, a burner, cell phone, which is becoming more and more essential, and go from there. Not a whole lot. I mean, we want him out hustling.
He would need to get his job then in those 3 weeks. Is that correct?
That's right. And if you don't move him toward that, then he'll sit back and, I'm out of prison, let me relax. And you can't afford to do that.
Well, I
That's
think
also when he gets in trouble, when he's not hustling.
that ties into a question that just came in on the chat, which is whether there are anybody knows of established partnerships with employers. Is that important for our program to succeed?
Yes. With the Welcome Home, we have people that we know will hire. And if the guy has something specialized, like we had one guy who came out, was a barber, and got out on Tuesday and was hired on Wednesday. Construction will take most anybody that seriously wants to work hard. Food services will take people that are willing to go in and work hard. And if they have training as a chef, it's even better. Then conversely, banking isn't going to even open the envelope. So there's some places that are obviously not going to work.
Okay. Thank you.
Alex? Yeah, thank you. Are there other questions from the floor? We're really at the end of the 10 minutes, but we might squeeze one more in. Howard Pickett, you've had some questions on the chat. Do you want to raise any of those? Howard may have left.
Father Tuck had a few as well.
Yeah.
Go ahead,
Father
Howard.
Tuck, anything else on your list?
Sorry, I think Howard just.
Let
I think Howard
Howard
just joined
speak.
in.
Let Howard speak.
Okay, Howard.
I would just love to know if Jessica has had a chance to review the steps in the document to see if anything there looks problematic, practically, legally, morally, et cetera, and also if there are any steps that aren't listed in David's good list that you would recommend that we include. So I'm not sure if you've seen that document, but would love to get your expert feedback.
Thank you. I did have a chance to glance at it and it looked very promising, but I will take a finer tooth comb to it. I'll try to get that done tonight and give a response. But I will say that, you need to be commended on the steps that you've already taken. To me, it's not just about, opening the door to somebody, but you're really hand-holding and doing it with fidelity. I think the biggest thing I can emphasize is setting someone up for success with sustainability. And so I think somebody already said it with the long-term commitment is that to give somebody, 5 minutes of a safety net is good, but we've found that it's just not successful. But to go the long haul with individuals, I think, knowing that that's going to be a long-term commitment, but I will definitely take a closer look at it, I assure you.
Also think
One
we
thing
have
I
to
would
remember
suggest, and David, I don't know if it's in there or not, but it's essential to train your mentors.
Right. And also in regards to time that we prepare or are planning to give the candidate in housing, we live in a small community, much different than some of the people you're talking about, Bill, and we have very few jobs, very little opportunity to find some of these things. And so I think that's part of the reason we are going a little extra on the lodging case.
Oh yeah, I'm not criticizing. I'm just
Yeah.
telling you how we manage it. Yeah.
Right. Thank you.
Okay, anything else pressing from the floor or from the chat line? Okay, if not, I'm gonna close the meeting, but we have one more share screen to do the closing with. So I'm gonna share screen and hope to find my, here we are. No, it didn't work, sorry.
It says it started.
I think you need to tell it what you're reviewing.
Yeah, I'm trying, I thought I had done the right thing. It's telling me Zoom. I don't want that. Yeah. So sorry. I'm not very good at this yet. New share. Let's try new share again. I want a Microsoft PowerPoint. But when I click it, it doesn't come up.
Do you already have it open?
I hope so. Well, I thought I had it
There
open.
it is.
There you go.
There it is. There it is.
Well, you see it, but I don't see it.
It's there. It's the thankful for our generous panelists and participants.
Yes, that's what I wanted to say. So would somebody read that, please? Because I cannot,
Yes.
I can't see it.
We are thankful for our generous panelists and participants and for the PUPS program started at Buckingham Correctional Center, the DOC for understanding, providing understanding of details, and to WNL Law School Clinic, BC3 for helping us to select a candidate.
Now, did I forward it to the next slide?
Yes, words from the prophet.
Yes, thank you.
And from Gospel of Matthew.
Thank you. So with that, we want to end the meeting, and we just suggest that you just read through those beautiful texts from our tradition, our combined traditions. And we thank you all very much for your interest, for your presentations, for your prayers, if your prayers, and just for being a part of this effort that we are underway with. And especially thanks to David and to Anna Crockett and to Gail Dickerson, who have been working in the sort of small committee to make this meeting happen. So they've been a wonderful help. Without them, it wouldn't have happened at all. So thanks to everyone, and I hope you have a good night. It's plenty warm out. Enjoy your evening. Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you, Alex.
Night.
Thank you, Alex. Thank
Night,
you.
everybody. Thank you.
Thank you, Alex.
Thank you.
Thanks, Alex.
Thank you. Bye. Thank you.
Bye.
If anybody can still hear, you can go to the community table for a good meal.
Oh, hi, MJ. Thank you.
This is the second event of this sort that's happening. It's a drive-through meal.
Great. Thank you.
Provided by our wonderful chicken maker up on the hill on the south side of town.
Thank you.
right decision because it's the right thing to do and not making it it's positive.
In corrections, we say that reentry is our business. And we have been saying so more so recently because we want to send a message both internally and externally to everyone that reentry is indeed our business.
Reentry begins the moment an offender is received in the Virginia Department of Corrections. It comes in the form of educational courses, training in various trades, and cognitive programming designed to meet the offender's needs based on their COMPASS assessment. Programming such as Thinking for a Change, Anger Management, and Money Smart. As most of Virginia's offenders approach the end of their incarceration, the planning and preparation for their return to society enhances. When possible, prior to the last 12 months of imprisonment, offenders are transferred to a facility closer to their releasing home plan to ensure they are connecting with family and resources in their communities. Once they reach 12 months prior to release, offenders enter Phase 1 of the Cognitive Community Intensive Reentry Program. Here, offenders are exposed to the specialized community setting, allowing them to come together and offer one another support and feedback in a highly structured environment.
Just walking into the pod, it was a sigh of relief. It was just a breath of fresh air to be around other inmates that are going home in a timely manner versus, you know, getting ready to transition out and being around a lot of guys that aren't going home. You know, that's a stressful situation. So it lets you relax a little bit and lets you be able to learn and pick up the things that you need to get.
Help me with social skills and problem solving, everything that I didn't have before or thought I had, I really have now. You know, so as they say, it's in my tool belt and I'm ready.
Each member of the community has an assigned job. This is called the structure board.
We have service crew, it keeps the wing cleaned. We have the education crew that does the word of the day at AMD and PMD. We also have inspiration crew. They have the thought of the day, and they also do the birthday cards and release cards.
Every position on that structure board is a position that you're gonna have to wear that hat on the street. You have a creative energy position. This is a position that you're gonna have to do when you go home because somebody in your family is gonna need you to make them laugh. You got a inspiration. That's a position. Somebody in your family is gonna need you to inspire them that particular day.
It makes you, I don't know if it so much shows you, but makes you re-aware of the fact that there's structure in the community. And, you know, that's something that we all have to live with.
The structure board also ensures that morning meeting, AMD, and afternoon meeting, PMD, operate in a smooth manner.
Morning meeting is designed to get us going. You know, it's that energy, it's that cup of coffee you guys like. For us, it's morning AMD. And we come in and we just share positive. Everything is positive. And then at PMD, it's the exact same thing. You open with closing AMD and you close with positivity on the PMD. Beautiful.
At the end of group, everybody should feel happy. Nobody should feel disrespected.
Leaders within the community are called elders. These individuals are tasked with maintaining order and structure. They also facilitate groups and provide motivation and coaching.
The decisions that they make as far as changing their life is based off of an example. And if there's an example in front of them that they can emulate, then that right there might be the push to get them to change their life, as opposed to a person just giving them information.
I'm a recovering drug addict, and what I hope to bring to the community is to be able to help the ladies with their addiction before they go out the door. A lot of the ladies are looking forward to me facilitating a group for addiction.
Many of the elders are serving long sentences, including life sentences. And while they may never return to society, they approach this role as a way to make a positive difference in the lives of those who are returning home.
I wanted to give my time back. It was a way for me to give my time back, the time that I've done, what I've learned over the years, you know, as far as not feeling like I should have this or I need this, but okay, let me give, you know, let me be a help in that kind of way.
While in Phase 1 of the Cognitive Community Program, offenders attend programming based on their personal assessment. Such programming may include resources for successful living, substance abuse group, PREPs, and Thinking for a Change.
Thinking for a Change is basically, it makes you stop and think about a situation that you're in. If you're in a bad situation and you don't think about the consequences of it, then you're just going to go off the deep end.
In Phase 2, the primary goal of the community is to change the negative patterns of thinking, feeling, and behaving that predispose crime, drug use, and other antisocial behaviors. Various cognitive interventions are deployed to help guide the offender through the change process. Such tools are thinking reports, essays, and awareness. More programming occurs, such as Ready to Work, process groups, Thinking for a Change booster sessions, and Victim Impact Group.
Which the process groups is extremely important, especially for guys like myself that haven't been home in such a while. Where the psychologists come in and they sit us down, we actually get to talk about some of the things that we didn't have the opportunity to do before we come to reentry. Well, they actually want to know about us and they teach us different things.
The core of the cognitive community modality is that the offender community itself is the agent of change, and it provides the laboratory for offenders to practice new cognitive behavioral patterns in a supportive environment. Working to enhance those supportive environments are trained cognitive counselors who facilitate the group sessions and support the pod elders.
We want them to be better than when they came in. We want to make sure that they have the skills and the tools, education, trades, and all these different things, job skills as well, and family support also that can help them be successful when they go back out there.
In the cognitive community, I'm able to meet with them and just see exactly what their needs are. And we're able to talk on a more one-on-one basis. It has such a family aspect.
The value of it is just seeing the guys doing well, seeing them doing the things that they're supposed to do, being right for their families as well as their friends. The community is very valuable.
The community is also enhanced by treatment officers. These are specialized members of the security personnel with the added responsibilities of facilitating programs, offering encouragement, and providing feedback and a listening ear.
Many of these ladies have not heard, "You're doing well," just "You're doing good," or "You look nice today," or "What you said was very inspirational to me." Just giving them that positive feedback, it goes a long way. It goes a long way. And just think about it. They will pass us in the grocery store, they'll pass us in the malls, and some of them will be picking our children up for school. So I take this role as being very important. I want the ladies to see something in me. I want to give them tools to carry out in society in order for them to have a productive life.
If you stop and look at the big picture and know that one day everything in here is for our benefit, to help us out when we leave our time at Fluvanna or incarcerated at all, it's all to help us, not to harm us.
I feel like if you get out and you don't have to be successful like as far as having a lot of money and all this kind of stuff, but if you get out of prison and you don't create any more victims, you taking care of your family and you're present in your community, I consider that successful.
Commencement exercises occur twice yearly in the cognitive community programs. This is a time for the returning citizens to be recognized for their growth and accomplishments.
This is your opportunity. This is your journey. Your journey is not complete. You got a lot of value. You got a lot of value. You are going to be a returning citizen. You need to reflect on what made you successful to get to this point, to sit in this chair, to wear this cap and gown, for your families to come in and witness you. You got a story to tell. These are only 4. Make a memorable story, okay? And good luck to you. Thank you.
Each cognitive community is associated with an offender workforce development specialist. This individual facilitates the Ready to Work program.
Bottom line about Ready to Work is getting people ready for the outside. And it covers all kinds of things from employment, money management. We also bring in people outside the community, like banking, social services, OAR, and different agencies in. So we look at resume, we do resume writings.
The OWDS also ensures that every returning citizen obtains a federal bonding letter upon release. The letter explains to potential employers that the returning citizen is bond eligible through the federal bonding program, which offers protections for employers in the event of loss as a result of theft, forgery, larceny, or embezzlement. Another responsibility of the OWDS is to host resource fairs twice each year. These provide opportunities for offenders to connect with outside employers and other employment resources. Another key element to successful reentry is the collaboration between the correctional centers, community corrections, and outside stakeholders. Partnerships like the one with DMV Connect allow returning citizens to take a major step toward reentry by providing them with a photo ID prior to release.
Certainly this is, excellent because you have to have an ID, So in order for, us to even exist in the world, you have to have this. And it's just one step that now that my family doesn't have to drive me to the DMV in order to get my picture taken and everything else.
To further bridge the gap between prisons and the community, senior reentry probation officers are tasked with making weekly visits to facilities.
We talk about accessing resources. We talk about probation. Not everybody has probation. We talk about family reunification. We talk about building relationships that are positive, for example, with your probation officer.
Okay. Most returning citizens want to know about their living arrangements. Not many of them have a regular living situation when coming back to the community. So they want to know about an alternate living situation.
The senior POs regularly present seminars. One appropriately titled Making It on Supervision is designed to help returning citizens whose release comes with a condition of probation or parole.
It is explained to them during my seminar that they have control over how their supervision will go for them based upon their choices and their actions, and the hope that they are gaining a good perspective while they're in the cognitive communities, so that when they do come out, they are weighing their choices and making better choices than they would have had they not been able to be a part of that program.
Another, titled Making It in the Community, is for those who return to society without probation or parole. Both seminars provide valuable information on how to avoid the potential pitfalls that lead to recidivism.
People want to know about resources. People really want to do well in the community, especially getting a touch of what the cognitive community is and all the programs that DOC offers. They want to know how they can use those tools when they go back to the community.
In addition to the seminars, these senior reentry POs meet one-on-one or in small groups with offenders to offer relevant guidance and support for a successful return to society. In their respective districts, these senior reentry POs host family reunification events to ensure that family members of returning citizens are supported and prepared for the return of their loved one.
So we'll have a dialogue circle where the family members are interspersed with the professional guests, and we'll start out with a check-in or an introduction, and from there we have some pre-planned questions to help the family get comfortable, and eventually the family and the professional guests begin to talk together about barriers, about hope, about addiction, about housing, employment, all kinds of issues having to do with the community.
Sometimes a returning citizen come home and they don't have the confidence. And so once the family member know of the resources that's available in the community, they can encourage their loved ones where to go for the resources that they need. I always say we cannot do this without the family. We cannot do this without community partners. So we all have to work together for the common goal of a successful re-entry back into the community.
Once returning citizens leave the facilities, probation and parole officers are there to provide support in the community, ensuring that the lessons learned while incarcerated are utilized in society. Trained in the EPICS model, officers combine a degree of monitoring, referrals, and face-to-face interactions to develop a working relationship with returning citizens under supervision. Reentry councils hold regular meetings, continuously looking for ways to enhance community resources and develop new and lasting partnerships to offer returning citizens a better chance at a successful reentry.
How do you motivate yourself to get work done after trying many times and failing over and over again?
Programming opportunities also continue, such as the Thinking for a Change peer support group.
And when you transition out, I think these peer support groups can give you a platform to come off to. It gives you the opportunity to understand other views and how others making it in life. And I enjoy doing it because it betters my lifestyle.
If they make those positive choices to get connected to the resources that are in the community and really use those things for what they're meant to be there for, then they would have a much better experience on supervised probation, and hopefully that would result in a successful transition in the community and off of supervision, where all of this becomes a part of their past.
Education, programming, planning for a successful return, support in the community. Our success in these areas is why Virginia can boast having the lowest recidivism rate in the country at 22.4%, proving that reentry is in fact our business at the Virginia Department of Corrections.